Brad Johnson here from johnson.audio, and today I'm going to talk to you about the problem with mixing tutorials. Now, mixing tutorials, do not get me wrong, are helpful. I mean, you can learn a lot of cool techniques, a lot of cool tricks, how to learn, what certain plugins do and how to use them. But the thing is that when it comes to your mix and the mixing tutorial, is that what they're showing in the mixing tutorial is very specific to that mix, to the tones of those instruments, to that arrangement, to that style. And so if you try to take it and bring it back to your mix, a lot of times those fancy tips and tricks do not translate because you're working with entirely different source material. There's so much stuff that's going to be different. You got to think of that arrangement, the instrumentation, the style, the recording, all that stuff plays a factor into this. So just because you saw a tutorial on how to use, reverb is really cool to create depth with your vocal, it might not work for your particular track. So really what you need to be looking at is the fundamentals of your plugins or your hardware, whatever it is that you're using. Know your EQ, know your compression, know why you would use it and what you're using it for, because that is what's going to take your mix to this next level. And then even before the mix, you got to look at your arrangement, you got to look at your recordings, you got to look at the performance. All that stuff makes a much bigger difference than the mix. If your arrangement's poor, it doesn't matter how much mixing you do, it's still going to come out not that great. If you've done this, if you've started a song from the beginning, if you've done pre-production, if you've done the recording, and you've done all the arranging, when you stack it against, say, one of your favorite songs, a lot of times you're going to start to hear the things that you're missing in the arrangement. You start to hear the intricacies of a very professional arrangement, a very professional mix. I ran into this myself with what I'm doing right now. I just got done arranging and producing a song for an artist, and when I'm mixing it, it's really hard not to get down on myself because when I stack it up against a professional arranged song, one that I was using as my reference, you start to hear how intricate and how much is going into those songs, and it's just like, whoa, I have a lot to learn myself. I really have a lot that I need to be practicing and thinking about, not just my mix, but everything else that came before it. And you can't beat yourself up over it. It's all learning. You definitely grow through every single bit of production, every single bit of your recordings and your songwriting. But I mean, really, when you really listen to it, you understand now why when you go to allmusic.com and you look at the credits list, why there's different arrangers and composers, and there's so many people that are involved in one particular project, because I mean, there's a lot that goes into it. So you cannot be the sole producer, mixer, arranger, mixing engineer, mastering engineer. Try not to do that. I've talked about in other videos about the power of delegation, but I'm kind of getting off on a tangent here. Really, when it comes down to mixing tutorials, you could waste so much time learning about all these different tricks. And another thing I don't like about mixing tutorials is that a lot of times you're using plugins and stuff that you may not own, and then you feel like you have to buy those plugins. You feel like, oh man, for me to, get this result, I need this plugin. So now you're spending more money on plugins, and you're really just wasting time. You really just need to just double down on what you have, figure out how to use it, know the fundamentals of your EQ, know the fundamentals of your compression, know why you might want to use saturation, and how to use all those different tools that you already have within your DAW. A lot of stock plugins can do what those third-party plugins can do. It might take you a little bit of finesse, it might take you a little bit of experimenting, but that's how you're going to learn your plugins, and that's how you're going to end up being able to do those cool mixing techniques down the line, because you now know your plugins, and you can start to really think creatively later, and then once you have those basics figured out. I know this has been a long rant. I've kind of gone off on different directions, but really, if I'm trying to drive one point home, it's learn the tools you already have and practice. Know your EQ, know your compression, and those two, those two tools should be able to take you majority of the way. Then you can want maybe a little bit of reverb, maybe some delay, and you can really craft a really great mix from those tools. You just have to make sure that your arrangement, your performance, and everything else before it you put a lot of thought into, because that stuff makes more of a difference than the mixing and then the mastering. That kind of stuff is really like taking 90% and taking it that last 10%. So I hope you got something out of this. If you did, please give me a thumbs up, hit that subscribe button, leave me a comment below if you have any questions or you want to jump in on this conversation. I'd love to know your thoughts on mixing tutorials, how they've helped you, maybe how they've helped you waste time. If you found yourself in that trap of wanting to buy the plugins after watching those mixing tutorials. And I would just love to hear your thoughts and continue this conversation. If you just want to reach out and say hello, I'd love to hear from you. I do respond to all my comments. To all my other subscribers, I do appreciate your continued support. I am Brad Johnson at johnson.audio, where I just want to help you create music that people love. I will see you on the next video. Bye.